Is there any more rivalry that is potentially more bitter than that between sisters? Even those who come to love each other over the years can go through times of intense anger and bitterness. In the case of Leah and Rachel, the sister wives of Jacob, the rivalry is intensified because one of the sisters seems to bear children without any problem, while the other appears barren. It makes for a rough family life. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Wednesday, October 19th, 2022. Yesterday we read a portion of the story of Jacob fleeing his brother Esau's wrath and returning to his ancestral home in Haran, where his parents sent him to find a wife from among their people. He meets his mother's brother Laban, who turns out to be every bit as sneaky as Jacob and Rebekah. It must run in the family. He tricks Jacob into marrying not only Rachel, for whom Jacob works for Laban for 7 years, but also his older daughter Leah. And with that, the sister rivalry is set to explode. This part of the story begins with God's realization that Jacob loves Rachel more than Leah, if indeed he loves Leah at all, and the Lord wants to compensate. When the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Leah conceived and bore a son, and she named him Reuben, for she said, "Because the Lord has looked on my affliction, surely now my husband will love me." She conceived again and bore a son, and said, "Because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also," and she named him Simeon. Again she conceived and bore a son, and said, "Now this time my husband will be joined to me, because I have borne him 3 sons." Therefore he was named Levi. She conceived again and bore a son, and said, "This time I will praise the Lord." Therefore she named him Judah. Then she ceased bearing. So Leah turns out to bear children easily. In the course of a few years, she produces no fewer than 4 sons. And if that were all there were to it, things might have gone all right. But then we read, when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister. And she said to Jacob, "Give me children, or I shall die." Jacob became very angry with Rachel and said, "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" Ouch! Even in our day and age, when one family member seems to be able to conceive and give birth easily, while another family member struggles to bear children, jealousy and hurt can divide otherwise close-knit families. But in that day and age, barrenness was seen as divine judgment. There was an added dimension of shame as well as an element of blame. In this case, Rachel blames Jacob for some unknown reason as being the cause of God's perceived judgment on her. What happens next could only happen in a story like this. Rachel gives her maid Bilhah to Jacob, so she could bear a son on Rachel's behalf, in an episode that immediately calls to mind the episode in which Sarah gives to Abraham her maid Hagar. Only in this case, Rachel does not harbor resentment against Bilhah the way Sarah bore resentment against Hagar. The story now becomes a pitched battle in which the sisters vie to produce children to Jacob. Now that Rachel has produced a son through Bilhah, Leah gives her maid Zilpah to Jacob to bear even more children for her. And so it goes, one hurt to another. And at long last, Rachel herself conceives and bears a son whom they name Joseph, who will become the most important of Jacob's sons. But really, what a mess. Not only does Jacob have 2 wives, which would surely create its own jealousies, he has sisters as wives, which only increases the bitterness of the jealousies. Add to it the sisters' maids as surrogate mothers, and you have all the makings of a real Peyton Place story. All of which returns us to the question, why in the world does God choose this family to bear the promise of blessing and redemption to the world? Surely a more normal family, one without all the drama this family dishes out, would be a more appropriate family, one that could actually model what it means to live as God's chosen people. But maybe, just maybe, there is a point to all of this. Maybe the answer is that this is exactly the right kind of family, one that has all the foibles, all the faults the rest of us have, for what God intends to do to bring blessing to the world. Tomorrow, Joseph's brothers get tired of little brother. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do, this day and in all the days ahead.